Three-Eye Atlas is interacting with the sun and influencing solar activities, which is expected to increase as it approaches its perihelion in October. An important factor that likely influenced the decision to move U.S. Space Command to Huntsville, Alabama, is that the new location is close to a giant underground spaceport used by Nordics and the Earth Alliance. Whistleblowers and insiders take real risks in coming forward to reveal what they know about UFOs and extraterrestrial life. The witness list for the September 9 UAP hearing in the House Oversight Committee's Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets has been released. Olympic Defender involves US Space Command and 6 other allied nations equivalents to Space Commands: Australia, Canada, France, Germany, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. These stories and more on Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome to the September 6th edition of Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review. We have quite a few stories to go through this week. It really has been eventful. I want to begin with a repost by President Donald Trump on his Truth account. And what he did was he just reposted this meme that was put together by someone else on the Truth Media social network. And as you can see, it says the world will soon understand. It has Trump in front of the earth and what looks like a kind of like a letter or a oval around him. And then you got this Q plus down here, and nothing can stop what's coming. Now, during his first administration, the Q movement took off, and many people were skeptical, but Donald Trump kept on doing things like this, where he would release memes or repost memes alluding to Q or to Q plus, because he was rumored to be Q plus. And this is important because the Q movement has been, from the first Trump administration, something that has released a lot of information about the military intelligence community that is working with Trump to overcome a satanic deep state cabal. That the Q movement explicitly referred to this satanic deep state, referred to ruling families that were part of it, and that Trump was working with the military intelligence community. Now, people have been all over this in terms of saying it's been disinformation. Others say this is totally legit. But here you have clear evidence that Trump is acknowledging and working with this Q movement by this tweet or by this retruth that came out on August 30. So that's just a week ago. So this, I think, really does put to rest that Trump is working with the military intelligence community and that they were involved in his first and now his current administration. And what's important here is that the Q movement did acknowledge the existence of extraterrestrial life, the cover-up of that, cover-up of UFOs, and the existence of secret space programs. It didn't go into great detail, but just mention them very briefly. And so this, I think, is very significant that Trump is continuing to associate himself with this Q movement. All right, so here is JP, former U.S. Army or retired U.S. Army now. He served for 4 years but got a full military pension for sickness, for injuries he sustained during his activities that involved UFOs. This is something that is not normal. people normally don't get a full military retirement pension after serving only 4 years unless they are involved in highly classified programs such as UFOs, where they sustain injuries in the course of those activities. And that's what happened to JP. So he is now officially retired from the US Army, but still does missions. And so this is him putting a video out on his YouTube channel. So if you haven't yet subscribed to JP's YouTube channel, here's an opportunity to do so. The link is here in the description. And this is where, let's see. Okay, so this is about him first hearing the words Akuria Matte, and in here he's just talking about when he first heard about that. So I'll just play a minute or so you get the flavor of what he has to say here.
What's up? What's up? What's up? How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing good. Having a beautiful day. In all my talks, right, I always say Akuria Matte. I'm going to get into the history of where I heard this for the first time. Akuria Matte, heaven to earth. That's what that means. Opening a portal from heaven to earth. So when you say Akuria Matte, you're just opening heaven to earth.
Okay, so JP goes on to describe him being taken to the Atlantic Space Arc, where he was part of a multinational mission involving Chinese and American soldiers and these Aztec Mexicans, and they went into the space arc, and the Aztec Mexicans at some point began singing and chanting the words Akuria Matte, and as they sing and dance that, they were able to move deeper and deeper into the space arc, which had this time dilation effect. And so when the Chinese tried to follow the Aztec Mexicans, they couldn't do it because their vibration was different. And so they got very angry with the American soldiers, saying, well, you said you were going to share everything, and here we can't follow these Mexican Aztec Indians, and it's like, why are you holding out on us? And so JP explained the situation, that they couldn't do anything about it, but apparently the words Akuria Matte were a frequency, or generating a frequency, a code, which allowed people to pass through this space arc's kind of like a frequency, or the time dilation effect that prevented people from accessing certain areas of the arc. In a later mission, JP describes how there were Russians that joined in the rescue effort to find these Aztec Mexicans who basically disappeared for several weeks, until this subsequent mission, where it was now the Americans, the Chinese, the Russians, and also an Aztec Mexican leader that went back to search for the original Aztec Mexicans who disappeared after they sang and danced Akuria Matte into the interior of the craft. So, all this is described in Book 1 of U.S. Army Insider Missions, and JP gives you a description in his YouTube channel. And the link to his YouTube channel is in the description, so you should be able to click the description, and it'll take you straight there so you can watch it and subscribe to his channel. All right, so I've done a few interviews recently on Redacted concerning the news that the Washington, D.C. has been federalized as far as its police force is concerned, and there has been a lot of movement by the National Guard, federal forces, to stop any kind of crime. But what is really going on behind the scenes is that they're taking action against these underground satanic bases or locations used by Satanists to practice their SRA rituals, where they generate frequency fields and so forth that enable them to really kind of keep Washington, D.C. in this very low frequency. And so this is, I think, a example of how this kind of military intelligence initiative associated with the Q movement is taking action against this global satanic network, bringing about circumstances such as the federalization of Washington, D.C., going after people who are illegal aliens involved in petty crime, homeless people, and so forth, where a lot of the dark practices are hidden or covered over. And so they're using that this kind of like military intelligence initiative. They're using this crackdown on crime and poverty as a means of being able to flush out these satanic groups and arrest them or take them to military tribunals, because one of the things is that when the civilian courts are unable to deal with a problem, and in this case the problem is that these Satanists have been practicing corruption and blackmail for decades against federal officials, including judges, which means that the civilian courts are compromised. And so with that basis, it is possible, it is lawful for military tribunals to be set up to deal with civilians who have been caught up in this kind of cleansing of the Washington, D.C. area, who are associated with these Satanists and their kind of blackmail and extortion activities against all types of government officials. All right, so here is a roundtable discussion where I was a guest along with Sasha Stone, Linda Moulton Howe, David Sarita, Dr. John Brandenburg, and we all discussed the 3I Atlas, and I thought it was a very good round table because it did present a range of initiatives or a range of perspectives on what 3I Atlas is and what it's doing and what we can expect. So it's essentially positive development. There was widespread agreement that this was not a comet, that this was a spacecraft of some kind. And so different perspectives were discussed about it, but it did appear that this was something that is going to play a role in transforming our planet and solar system. So there is a big expectation that 3I Atlas has been sent on a mission by those behind it, whether we're talking about it being part of an extraterrestrial initiative to awaken the planet, or it being part of the returning Solar Warden space program, as some say, that it is doing its course and proximity to various major planets does suggest that it's here to do something to change the frequency fields of our solar system. So this was the Lazarus Initiative Symposium organized by Sasha Stone. So you could go to his Lazarus Initiative Symposium to watch it, or you could go to Earth Files, which is Linda Moulton Howe's website or YouTube channel, and you could watch the replay there. But definitely well worth spending an hour and a half to watch that. So here is some more alien humor to start your week. it is something that features Darth Vader impersonating Luke Skywalker. So quite a laugh. So let me play for you the first minute or so of this.
What is it, my master?
We have a new threat, the offspring of Skywalker. If he becomes a Jedi, he could destroy us.
Anakin Skywalker, that whinny little figure who thought he was special, the one who cried about sand and couldn't even make master. Please, his kid's probably worse. Bad blood runs deep.
Did they knock your brain loose in that helmet, Vader? Whatever, do what you must, but don't let Skywalker become a Jedi. Wait, what are you doing? Stop zooming out.
Oops, sorry. I forgot which button ends the transmission. Just give me a second. Find me Luke Skywalker.
Of course, we've tried scanning, searching, interrogating, but clearly what we lacked was finding. I'll add it to today's to-do list.
Excellent. Make it your top priority. There you are. Step 1, find Skywalker. Done. Step 2, knock him out. What's up, Luke? Nice weather for a kidnapping.
Wait, what?
Okay, well, you get the idea. It goes for just under 4 minutes, so some nice satire there. So that is an impersonation of Luke Skywalker by Darth Vader. Quite humorous. Here's an interview I did with Dr. Scott Mandelker, Confederation of Planets and the Law of One. So Dr. Scott Mandelker, he is someone that has studied the Law of One material pretty much since its inception. He began studying it in the 1980s. And so he, in that subsequent period, has become quite an expert in what the Law of One teaches. Now, the Law of One that came out between 1981 to 1984, where the channel Carla Rucker worked with a physicist, Dr. Don Elkins, and Jim McCarthy. And so they recorded 106 sessions, and those sessions have over time been known as the Law of One material. And it's widely considered to be the kind of gold standard for channeled extraterrestrial communications, and has exerted really a profound influence on many individuals, including Scott Mandelker, who has done, I think, close to 250 articles discussing various aspects of the Law of One material. So in this interview, we get to hear about Scott Mandelker's background, how he got interested in the Law of One material, what the Confederation of Planets is, who Yahweh is. So he really does distinguish between two Yahwehs, the Yahweh who is considered to be a genuine, benevolent, higher density extraterrestrial that is associated with the Confederation of Planets, and then an imposter, a mimic, who is this kind of despot that you see described in the Old Testament, like in the book of Deuteronomy, where Yahweh commands the Israelites to go and slaughter different tribes, and the women and children and animals would be slaughtered as well. That is this imposter Yahweh, according to Scott Mandelker. So very interesting information that he presents, and it gives us another perspective on the different extraterrestrial organizations that are here. I do plan to have him back on my show and we'll talk more about how the Confederation of Planets operates and the differences with organizations such as the Galactic Federation. And so he'll talk about that. All right, so here is a short that we have started to put out. So we've started to put out shorts which summarize some of the material that we have released. So this summarizes the 4 paths humanity will take as extraterrestrial disclosure unfolds. So let me play this short for you. 4 stages that the Earth is going through at the moment: escape from the cabal, AI, and God matrix into an organic 5D Earth. And the first stage involves the cabal, or the deep state, the bloodline ruling families. They are collapsing, but nevertheless, there are people who still identify with the cabal that are part of that world. And so the Earth is going to separate into 4 tracks. And as I best understand it, those that identify with the cabal, they will go to another 3D Earth. They will continue to live in an environment where you have a hierarchical, competitive organization where those at the top get to lord it over the rest of society. Some people like that. The second is a 4th density Earth where there will be this technological intelligence operating for those people that choose it. There is the third option, which he describes as the God matrix. The return of the gods means that the principal being in that belief system, whether we're talking about Jehovah, Allah, Kalki, Enki, these beings are real and they will return. The people who identify with them will be taken in a planetary harvest, and they get to go with their God, and they become part of that God matrix on another world or in space. That leads to the 4th stage, which is those people who remain on Earth. They will be the people who create an organic 5D Earth where people are able to manifest collectively their dreams. This is all possible on this 5D Earth, which will be in complete harmony with nature. Those that might be visiting this Earth will look at the Earth and see it full of forests and so forth, and not realize that within this 5D forested Earth, you can have a very highly advanced society that is comprising people who have been able to master their own innate ability to manifest a collective reality around them, which is in alignment with their highest potential. People who are able to connect with their heart center, with that infinity point within, become creator gods, and you can create this collective reality around you. So very interesting information. People are really resonating with George's information. So if you haven't yet listened to George Kavasilis, then I recommend you do so. All right, so that is based on an interview I did with George Kavasilis, which is available on exopolitics.org or YouTube, and you can watch the full interview, which runs just under 2 hours. So lots of good information about the future as George Kavasilis has been able to discern it from his communications with extraterrestrials. Okay, so there's a petition here for the Westall UFO incident, which happened in Melbourne, Australia in 1966. That has many people have reported on it, many witnesses, and it was clearly covered up. Now, most people assume that we have here a case of extraterrestrial contact, but I wrote an article about this case some time ago. So this article I wrote in 2016. And when I looked at the Westall case and the distances involved, I brought up the possibility that it could be related to an Australian anti-gravity program that was underway at that time in these different areas that were associated with the Royal Australian Air Force, and that there was a anti-gravity science project secretly being pursued at Fisherman's Bend. So I talk all about this in my article, which is available, Secret Australian Anti-Gravity Program, linked to 1966 flying saucer landing. So yes, while many people believe the Westall UFO incident involving a flying saucer and people coming out of it involved extraterrestrials, you can make a good case that it may well have been part of a reverse engineering program, and that could have been Americans and Australians coming out of the craft and just testing public reaction. Here is some news from Donald Trump, where he, on his Truth Social, posted that now that Washington, D.C. has had crime drastically reduced, and what I took that to mean was that him proclaiming D.C.'s crime has been reduced meant that this Earth Alliance, or this white hat military intelligence movement that he's associated with, have largely succeeded in removing a lot of the satanic networks and bases and facilities that were located underground in the Washington, D.C. area. And now they're turning their attention to other crime-filled cities such as New York, Los Angeles, Baltimore. Now, all of these have similar satanic underground networks that are ready to be cleansed by federal forces acting in unison with positive extraterrestrial groups. Now, one of the things that needs to be emphasized here is that it was learned long ago that in order to control a country, you have to take over the major cities, but more importantly, the energy vortices, or the kind of like the principal energy spots of that nation. And they're typically where the major cities are, which is why they're chosen, that they become population centers, because they are typically over major vortices. And if you corrupt those energy vortices through SRA, crime, and so forth, then it's easy to control the population because they are going to be at a low frequency. So you say this is kind of like a part of a consciousness war. It's really about cleaning out not just petty crime, homelessness, and drug use and so forth, but also identifying, locating, and cleansing these facilities, these locations where you've got these groups that practice Satanism and perform all kinds of horrendous rituals there involving very young people. And you get my drift by that. A lot of young people that go missing, they end up at these places, and they are subjected to all kinds of abuses and sacrifice and so forth. So this is what's being cleansed in the Washington, D.C. area, and also other major cities that we can expect over the next few weeks and months. Here is a video talking about Three-Eye Atlas interacting with the sun and influencing solar activity, such as coronal mass ejections. And that's expected to increase as it approaches its perihelion. That's the closest point that Three-Eye Atlas gets to the sun, which will be in late October. So we're talking just over a month and a half from now. And when it gets to its perihelion. So its trajectory has led to scientific speculation. Professor Avi Loeb from Harvard says that it's a spacecraft, and that corroborates remote viewing, double-blind remote viewing from Dick Allgaier and the his remote viewing organization, and also contactee claims from George Cavassalis, GFL Station, or Dave Akira, and others, that 3i Atlas is a spacecraft and it's part of a disclosure initiative. So that's very interesting that we are now going to witness in the weeks and months ahead 3i Atlas approaching, influencing not only the planets, the major planets it flies by, but also influencing the sun. The sun's solar activity has already been observed to be interacting or being influenced by 3i Atlas. So this is something that this is very interesting. So this is the video by Stephen Burns, who wrote, "It's already happening. The sun begins interacting with 3i Atlas as cosmic frequencies increase." And I think this is what a lot of different sources, whether we're talking contactees, channelers, insiders, that they're saying 3i Atlas is changing the frequencies of the planets and of our solar system. And this is evidenced by the sun starting to interact and display increased solar activity. And so Stephen Burns goes through the evidence that this is indeed happening now. Okay, so here is something that is a kind of major development, and that is that the future home of US Space Command has been moved from Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. Oh, actually, it's now called Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado, is being moved to Huntsville, Alabama. Now, why Huntsville, Alabama? Well, Huntsville has a long history in rocket development. It's the location of the Redstone Army Arsenal, and it's also where the Marshall Space Flight Center was created for the NASA program to develop the giant Saturn V rockets that would be used for the moon landings. Now, one of the things that I believe very likely influenced this decision to move Space Command from Colorado to Huntsville, Alabama, is that there's a giant underground spaceport right next to Huntsville, Alabama, that's used by Nordic extraterrestrials that are working with the Earth Alliance. Now, JP was twice taken to that spacecraft, or that spaceport, which he described as a base for training Earth Alliance pilots on hybrid Nordic human spacecraft. So JP says that he arrived at that base on a bus with approximately 35 people. 33 of them were pilots, international pilots. 2 of the people, including JP, were just observers. They were there to just observe what happened. And he said that once the bus stopped, all of those pilots got out and ran over to a flying saucer that was on the ground in this giant underground spaceport. And there were these Nordic extraterrestrials that were there next to the saucer, and they were they were training the pilots on how to fly these flying saucer craft, and that these craft were likely going to be used for a future disclosure initiative. Now, when I analyzed JP's data and some historical records, what my conclusion was that this underground base was very likely under Green Mountain, Alabama, which is adjacent to Huntsville, and that the base extends all the way from Green Mountain to Huntsville, and that this is, I think, one of the major reasons why it was chosen. So here is the actual interview I did with JP, my JP update number 33, where he describes Nordics training international military pilots to fly flying saucers. So that was on April 15, 2024, when he went there. I believe this was his second visit there. He had gone in a previous visit, I believe it was in 2023, to this underground location. So this was his second visit to this underground location in northern Alabama. And it really is very significant because it shows that the US military, or the white hats that are involved in the secret space programs, have these multinational programs going on with different nations. And that this helps us understand why, for example, the Artemis Accords are so popular. Why have 54 nations joined the Artemis Accords? Well, because the US is working with Nordic extraterrestrials, and if you sign on to the Artemis Accords and you collaborate with the US Space Command, then you can get your pilots to train on these cool hybrid anti-gravity Nordic human spacecraft. And so that's, I think, powerful motivation for other countries to align themselves behind the US when it comes to future space operations. Okay, so here is something which describes how David Grush got harassed by someone in the National Reconnaissance Office and subsequent harassment. So this is Dr. Eric Davis, who talks about what he knows happened to David Grush. So let's listen to Eric Davis talk about David Grush being harassed, being intimidated into silence. So here we go.
What happened to Dave Grush after he filed his whistleblower complaint? It was before he ever testified.
Right.
What happened to Dave Grush is he got harassed and intimidated, both him and his wife. He got harassed by someone in the National Reconnaissance Office, and then he got physically harassed at his home and in his vehicles by people unknown. And then somebody leaked a PTSD episode he had, because remember, he's a war veteran, and he was in the combat field, and he suffered PTSD and was going through a crisis with his wife. And somebody decides they're going to illegally go into his private medical files, violate the HIPAA law, and release that to the news media so that they can attack his character.
And there are a lot more lawyers at this point on your side, on the UAP Disclosure Fund, and a number of other organizations have spun up to offer pro bono legal support to whistleblowers and people being harassed. Do you feel any better do you feel like it's safer now than it was when Dave came out?
Possibly. I think so.
Yeah.
I just have to have a lawyer tell me, look at the situation, look at the circumstances under which.
All right. So there you have this David Grush being harassed, which shows that it is very risky for whistleblowers to come forward if they don't have a support network behind them. That you need to be working with someone or a group, some organization that will give you support if you get harassed, and that's very important. And so in this case, David Grush has not done any further congressional hearings since the one he did back in July of 2023. That's over 2 years ago, and that is partly due to the fact that he's been harassed. Also, probably more likely reason is that he has been denied the security clearances to be able to talk about things that he saw while he was working with the National Reconnaissance Office. So it's a very effective way to shut up a whistleblower, because they know that if they talk about things that they have not been authorized to reveal, that they could end up in jail. Okay, now JP also did a short video where he discusses his trip to this underground facility in Alabama, where he saw the spaceport and saw the international pilots training. So if you go to JP's channel, the link is actually in the description below, and it'll take you straight there. So you can actually hear JP talking about his trip to this underground location. So I'll play the first minute of his clip. Let me do that.
What's up, everybody? I'm happy to be here to bring you more information. A lot of good confirmations are coming out. You know, a lot of confirmations are coming out in the news. Recently this happened in the news and Fox News. Hear this real quick.
I can't always say that, even if they're Republicans, and these are Republicans, great Republicans. I want to thank you all for being here for this important announcement, 7 years in the making. As you know, this has been going on for a long period of time, and I am thrilled to report that the U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City. Okay, so Huntsville, Alabama, we love Alabama. I only won it by about 47 points. I don't think that influenced my decision, though, right? That didn't, right?
So but, this is unbelievable
we had a lot of
confirmation.
Competition for this. And
April 16th in 2024, I did an update 33 with Dr. Michael Sala. I'll put the link down in the comments for you guys to see, and also in book 2, where I talk about underground cities, giants, and spaceports. Update 33, when I went into this spaceport and I saw Nordics, ETs, training pilots. They took me in the white van. I went on the white van, and they took me into this place in Alabama, and it's like, I can't tell you the exact location, but I'm sure people will know where it is. Now we know that they're moving Space Force to Alabama. So this is a big confirmation.
And JP's absolutely right. That is a big corroboration for the testimony he gave back in 2024 and earlier, where he went to this underground base and saw the flying saucer craft that were present, that were going to be used in a disclosure initiative, and also were being used to train pilots from multiple nations on how to fly these hybrid Nordic extraterrestrial and human spacecraft that were now part of US Space Command. All right, so here is a communication, really a channeled message from Zorion of Sirius. So this is channeled by Dave Akira. So I just want to confirm that Dave Akira is a real person. I have spoken to him. He says that all of the channeling on the Galactic the GFL website come from human channelers, including himself, that all the voices you hear are human voiceover artists, but they do use AI for the artwork. So that hopefully clarifies what you hear from the GFL station. Now, what I liked about this particular channeled message, and this is something that I find coming through the GFL communications consistently, is that they always emphasize the importance of genuine disclosure being us encountering our true selves, our higher self, the inner light. That it's all about encountering the inner light. That's genuine disclosure. That's full disclosure. And that waiting for official disclosure of lights in the sky, that you can wait a long time for that, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is genuine disclosure of the inner light within. So for me, who's been working in this field now since 2001, so 24 years, I have to admit that this is a message that does resonate, because it really is a long, long wait, and almost a fool's errand in a way, waiting for official disclosure of the lights in the sky, governments to reveal the truth, and what eventually will be revealed will be so kind of like superficial that these are craft that have been reverse engineered or belong to an extraterrestrial species that the government is aware of, but we're going to be given very little information. But when you encounter and connect with the inner light, you not only have a connection with who you truly are, but also you get answers to what is happening around us, and that is very, very important. I think in terms of being someone who's been trying to understand the extraterrestrial phenomenon for 24 years now, having studied hundreds and hundreds of books, whistleblower cases, contactee claims, and so forth, and that ultimately it comes down to our own discernment as to what is true or not. And the way you develop discernment is by connecting with that inner light within, and that will help you sort out the wheat from the chaff, because there is a lot of chaff out there. There's a lot of deliberate misinformation and disinformation that is in the field, and with experience you're able to navigate that without too much of a problem. But for people who are new, it is very, very difficult. Here's an interview I did with Gosha, who really became known in the English-speaking world in 2018 when she began a channel called Cosmic Agency in English. She also has one in Spanish that she has been putting out messages on since 2017, as I recall. But the English-speaking channel, that's been out since 2018, and in it she describes her communications with a group of Tagetan extraterrestrials coming from different planets in that star system, and that the first was a young girl called Swaru from the planet Era, and over the subsequent years she began to speak with other extraterrestrials from the Tagetan star system, and they described how the Tagetans came from 4 planets in the Tagetan star system, including Era, and that they observed a prime directive in guiding the activities and intervention in Earth affairs, and that prime directive governed all Galactic Federation of Worlds members in this galaxy, and that it is something that is used to be able to help galactics deal with worlds like ours, which is still going through this phase of believing that we're on our own, that there's no evidence out there of intelligent extraterrestrial life. So tell us the scientific community. But interestingly, Swaru received the prime directive in 2018. I'm sorry, Swaru relayed the prime directive in 2018 to Gosha and her Spanish partner, Robert, and they released it in its entirety And this is the first time that all 10 principles of the Galactic Federation were released. And several years later, 2021, so 3 years later, the same 10 principles with slightly different wording and in a different order were released by another person, another contact. Well, this is a contactee with the Galactic Federation who did not acknowledge the earlier release by Swaru, and in fact had the audacity to say that the Swaru information was disinformation, even though they were the first to release it, which is very perverse. So then in year 2020, another Tagetan girl, this time from the planet Timor, or Tema, took over from Swaru and continued sending messages through the internet to Gosha and Robert. So the mode of communication was that Gosha and Robert would receive chat messages from the extraterrestrials who were using the technology that was widespread on Earth at the time. That's part of the Prime Directive. And in our interview, Gosha went on to describe how Anika was then followed by other individuals, and these are some of their names: Alanum and Athena, Elizabeth, and so forth. So quite a few. It is a little complicated in terms of the number of Tagetans that had been involved in this initiative. But what's really fascinating for us who are trying to get a grip on the Galactic Federation of Worlds, interacting with humanity, working with the Earth Alliance, is that there are important philosophical differences between the Tagetans and the Galactic Federation. That opinion within the Galactic Federation is divided, that there's not just one prevailing view that's adopted by all the races that belong to the Galactic Federation. Some of them are aghast at the Galactic Federation's dealings with Earth authorities and the lack of genuine progress when it comes to disclosure. And this leads to all sorts of problems in terms of, well, has the Galactic Federation of Worlds leadership been compromised or not? Some say yes, because they've been so permissive and have been working with the Dark Hats. Others say no, they haven't, because the Galactic Federation has been doing incredible work in clearing these underground satanic bases, working with Earth Alliance forces. And this is something that others have talked about as well. Dr. Andrea Martin has also talked about the Galactic Federation taking on the lion's share of the kind of cleansing operation. So it's quite complicated, but what we get from the material, the Swaru material, or the Tagetan material, as Gosha prefers to call it, is another perspective. And we need to consider all these perspectives to get the big picture of what's going on, because I think that the Tagetan communications, initially from Swaru and then the others, are quite genuine. The information resonates, it matches, it's very original. There's a lot of complexity there. And I think anyone that studies the Swaru material, that's a good time investment, although it's more recently been a subject of great controversy, because apparently there has been a split within the Tagetans, or at least the present representative of the Tagetans, Queen Marie Swa, has, let's just say, behaved in a way, according to Gosha and Robert, which raises the question of infiltration. So it is something that is quite complex. But as far as the early material is concerned, it, I think, is very valuable. So you can go through the channeled communications, or they're not channeled communications. You can go through the transmitted communications since 2018 up until very recently. And I think what you'll get is a very credible perspective on the galactic affairs concerning Earth. Okay, so the witness list for the September 9 UFO hearing in the House Oversight Committee's Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets includes 4 individuals: Jeffrey Nuccitelli, Dylan Borland, Alejandro Wiggins, and George Knapp. Now, Nuccitelli and Wiggins are known to have witnessed UFOs and publicly discussed their sightings. Borland is an unknown, while Knapp is a journalist and not an eyewitness. All right, so far we don't know who or what Dylan Borland is going to be talking about, but so far, going on the other witnesses, there's nothing really groundbreaking here. I mean, just having more witnesses, military witnesses, come forward and say, yeah, during my military service, I saw UFOs and it was covered up and so forth. And George Knapp is a journalist. He's not a first-hand witness himself. So we're not breaking new ground as we did back in July 2023 when David Grush came forward in a similar hearing and spoke about UFO crash retrieval operations and classified reverse engineering programs that were underway by legacy corporations. So, I mean, that was groundbreaking information. There are others who have talked about UFO crash retrieval operations. A more recent witness who's come forward is Jacob Barber, who's talked about that. Jason Sands is another military witness who saw a UFO land. I think it was in White Sands missile range. So you have others that have first-hand eyewitness accounts of landings and crash retrieval operations, but they are not speaking at this. Now, the reasons why, maybe it's because of intimidation, maybe it's because of security clearances. I believe this is why David Grush hasn't been allowed to testify. But the ones who are allowed to testify are just going to tell us about, well, yeah, I saw a UFO in the sky, and yeah, this is how it looked and so forth. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, it's good that we're having these testimonies being heard by Congress, but it's unfortunate that we're, in a sense, taking a step back and not looking at more evidence of UFO crash retrieval operations and reverse engineering programs. Okay, so I did another interview on Redacted, which covered this move of U.S. Space Command to Huntsville, Alabama, and the reasons for that. So you can go to Redacted, and this is the timestamp on the episode that came out on September 4, I believe that was, yes, September 4, where we discussed that. But the link will be in the description, and it runs for about 15 minutes, so you'll be able to see me discussing this with Clayton Morris of Redacted. Okay, here is a post, a tweet from US Space Command, where they say, space is a team sport. Through multinational force operation, Olympic Defender, 7 allied nations unite to safeguard the ultimate high ground. So this is a multinational force comprising the Five Eyes countries, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United States, United Kingdom, along with France and Germany, and also other countries such as Italy and Norway and Japan are also at different stages of joining Olympic Defender, which is a military operation involving the space commands of those different countries collaborating in what is going to be the nucleus of a future Starfleet being set up for a Star Trek future. Now, earlier on, I talked about JP going to that underground base in Alabama, where there were approximately 30 pilots who went from different nations who went into those spacecraft, into those hybrid flying saucer craft where they met Nordics and they were being trained. So I don't know the exact number, but up to 30 different international pilots were there on the bus with JP and went to join. So all of those pilots will be part or are part of this Olympic Defender. So this is the nucleus for what will eventually be Starfleet. And a Star Trek future is officially the optimal goal for the future being developed by the United States Space Force in accordance with a workshop symposium that was conducted in 2019 at Peterson Space Force Base. And that symposium identified a Star Trek future. Out of 8 scenarios that were presented, the Star Trek future was the optimal scenario where the US would lead space initiatives comprising the military sector, in comprising people in space, and comprising the economics in space. And so Olympic Defender is a critical part of this forming, or this Starfleet that is slowly forming. And I think that's why we can anticipate in the years ahead that other nations who have pilots that are being trained at this underground facility near Huntsville, that their countries will be joining this Olympic Defender, and it will become a multinational initiative. And as I've already said, when it comes to the space arcs, China and Russia are already working with the United States. So this is where we need to look beyond normal geopolitics, which is just all about the friction and conflict between China, Russia, and the United States, because this is what the legacy media, which is doing the bidding of the cabal, the satanic networks, they want Russia, China, and the United States to be fighting. But behind the scenes, military intelligence from the US, the Trump administration, the Connor Q movement, they are cooperating. They are encouraging cooperation between these different nations. Okay, so here's the Y Files. They did another special on this time on the Majestic 12 Special Studies Group. And for those that don't know too much about the Majestic documents and how MJ12 relates to that, this gives you a nice summary of the documents, of the groups involved, and how it all became embroiled in controversy. So I have the link to the Y Files in the description, so you can watch the episode there, where AJ does his normal kind of like a very comprehensive overview of what would make the Majestic 12 documents and the group something worth studying, while also then presenting the other side as to, well, you know, how much of this is disinformation and so forth. So, yeah, you can get to see both sides from the Y Files. Right here is something very interesting. Ask a Poll is someone who is based in Washington, D.C., who does these kind of guerrilla-style interviews with members of Congress. And so he did one here where Representative Paulina Luna was asked about what's going on, and concerning the UAP caucus, which is members of Congress that want the truth about UFOs and extraterrestrial life and reverse engineering programs and so forth to come forward. That now they're being told we don't have clearances for certain things. complains the chair. So Anna Paulina Luna is the chair of the UAP caucus, and so they're being denied access. So on the one hand, you have a steady stream of whistleblowers, insiders that are telling the UAP caucus that, yes, crash retrieval operations are real. Yes, the craft involve non-human intelligence, and yes, they're being reverse engineered. And when they say, well, where's the evidence for this? These insiders, these whistleblowers say, well, we can't tell you that because we'd violate our non-disclosure agreements. We can only tell you in a SCIF, a sensitive compartment information. And when the UAP caucus tries to get access to a SCIF so that these whistleblowers can tell them all about the details for where these programs are being held, they're told that no, these whistleblowers, these insiders don't have security clearances to do that, or you don't have the security clearance to do that. So this is how, on the one hand, we are making progress because more and more whistleblowers and insiders are coming forward. But on the other hand, because they can't reveal classified information, there's only so much that they can reveal. All right, so here we get to the trailer for the upcoming webinar, which is going to be held on September 13, where we will be discussing Earth's liberation from the deep state and joining the galactic community. So that webinar will be held in 1 week from today, on September 13, and you can join that. You can just pay outright through Crowdcast. You can join it, or you could become a Patreon member, and there are different levels of discounts by becoming a Patreon member. You can get a 10% discount if you become a planetary patron. You can get a 20% discount if you become a solar patron, or you can get a 100% discount, or you basically get to do these webinar panels for free if you are a galactic patron. Or you can just do it as a one-off through Crowdcast. The link is below for participating in this webinar, and I will be doing a presentation that lasts for 90 minutes. Then there will be a panel where I will be joined by James Gilliland, who's got over 40 years experience as a contactee. He's got phenomenal information about contact. He's got hundreds, even thousands of videos and photographs of different craft that have been flying over his SETI Ranch. So I'm looking forward to talking to James about us joining the galactic community and what he knows about the deep state, the cabal, and our liberation from that. And also Laura Eisenhower, who is the great granddaughter of President Dwight Eisenhower, who was the one that initially set in place this military intelligence initiative to reveal the truth about these programs involving extraterrestrial life. So she was the subject of a recruitment effort by the deep state to take her to Mars, and she said no. And she's been spilling the beans on what the deep state's been doing and clearing the legacy of her great grandfather, President Eisenhower. So here is a trailer that was put together by my wife, Angelica Wycliffe. I mean, this is, for me, when I first saw this trailer, it brought tears to my eyes. I mean, Angelica did such a fantastic job with the images and the story. It's well worth watching. And so you can watch it now by just clicking the, it'll come up at the end of this this week in review. You can just click the dialogue box there to watch this webinar. So that's it for this week in review. Thank you for joining, and I will do another week in review next week, the day of the webinar, and look forward to seeing you then.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.